Welcome back, Driven Woman Entrepreneur. When I first talked with Heidi Taylor about being a guest on the podcast, I expected to interview her about her area of expertise, using an intake form or questionnaire to pre-screen potential clients for group coaching programs. Now, clearly this is something I'm interested in before I relaunch the Boss Up Breakthrough, and I know it would be of value to you as well. After we confirmed and started planning, Heidi sent me a Voxer message and asked me about my Strength Finder Top 5 and my enneagram number. This got me curious, and once I shared my answer, she said, I have a better idea for the episode, but it will require a lot more vulnerability and courage on your part. Well, once she explained what she had in mind, I knew I had to say yes, and here's why. One of the most talked about episodes of the Driven Woman Entrepreneur podcast is episode 125, Lessons from a Failed Launch. The reason is simple. I pulled the program on my group program launch last fall because I simply wasn't able to attract enough of what I call my perfect fit clients to fill the program. And I just wasn't willing to have a less than optimal experience for the wonderful people who did sign up. Well, I recorded an episode about it, talking openly and honestly, and I wanted to normalize the experience of failure for other female solopreneurs and just model that it's okay to make mistakes, learn from them, and talk about it publicly. So Heidi's suggestion was this: instead of you interviewing me, why don't I coach you about your recent failure? We can figure out why you didn't attract enough of your perfect clientele. And I'll tell you what, spoiler alert, you really should listen to episode 125 either before or after listening to this one, because even though this is about me and my business, you are going to find so many insights that are relatable for you and your business, I promise. Here's the bottom line. If you have ever been frustrated or just wondered, why am I attracting people to my programs, but they might not always be the ones who get the best results working with me? You are going to want to listen all the way to the end and pay close attention. I honestly had so many mind-blown moments in this conversation with Heidi. It literally made me rethink many, many things about the way I'm running my business, and even rendered me temporarily speechless a couple of times. Now, if you know me even a little, you know how rare that is. So grab your favorite beverage and be prepared to listen, learn, and grow. Here we go. So if you have been along for the Driven Woman Entrepreneur ride as far back as, let's say, episode 125, the one that has gotten the most attention, I have to be honest, the one that's the most vulnerable, the one called Lessons from a Failed Launch. And if you haven't listened yet, after this, you should. My guest today is Heidi Taylor, someone who I have mad hair envy for and a complete fascination with what she does for a living. And that is this: for those of us who are experts, who provide high-touch services as coaches, consultants, service providers, getting our just right clients and customers to our door is where Heidi excels. Now, it's up to us to get them through the door and to know what to do with them once they're in the room with us. But Heidi helps people like me, and perhaps you, get the right people to the door and pre-screens and qualifies them for us so that those painful sales conversations that should never happen actually don't. So Heidi, welcome.
Thank you for having me. I mean, I've been dying to have this conversation with you, so it's time. It's time.
And it's going to be another vulnerable one, although I do not have any Kleenex handy, so hopefully we won't go too deep. But actually, Heidi is here because when I reached out to her and asked her to become a guest, she came back to me with a suggestion for how we conduct this interview that I never would have thought of. And I was a little scared to say yes to. And that is, she is going to use her brilliance to help me unpack why my recent group program launch failed. It wasn't 100% a fail. I actually pulled the plug. But in case you haven't listened to episode 125 and have no intention to do so, I'm going to give you the quick word on it. I wasn't able to go forward with this program because I wasn't able to get enough of the just right people to sign up at that time. And I don't have any intention to go back to bat again until speaking with Heidi, because this is what she does and excels at. And she's really the singular sensation in this area. So I'm just going to open myself up to whatever juicy goodness she has in store for me, because I know what's good for me is also good for you who are in this position. So Heidi, where shall we start?
Awesome, Diane. I'm excited to do this with you. I'm going to ask a lot of questions. And really, here's what I'm noticing about the clients that I work with, the entrepreneurs that we circle around, is that market research, right, is the topic that everybody thinks they have the corner on. They've got it figured out. And I am here to say, like, this is the thing that just lights me up so much is buyer behavior. You know, who do we match up with? Who makes sense for us to work with? Why and how? What's the signal that we're putting out that is attracting the less than ideal people? And how do we get to the bottom of that? Like, that is my job, and I love it deeply. And so let's get to it with you, because I want to hear about the people that came, the characteristics, like what it was that had them be a no for you. But before you answer that question, I think I want to give you some time to sort of think about that. But also, I wanted to just sort of like invite anybody listening in to think about, when you look at the clients that you're currently working with, do you know their enneagram type? Do you know their strengths finder top 5? Do you know whether they're excellent at executing, taking action, influencing others? Where are they the strongest when you're delivering your coaching, your whatever service you provide? How are your clients showing up for the work, and what gets the work done on their end, right? What excites them and motivates them to get that done? Because if you don't know the answers to those questions, you're just going to attract people who are willing to pay you. And then once you get into the client relationship, that is when it gets really frustrating, all of the things, right? That's when we realize, oh my goodness, I have just attracted my mother, my father, my boss, all of the people that I have the hardest time like getting to do anything. We've all had those clients. And so just a quick little story about what really got me here is my own problem with who am I attracting? How are they working with me? What are their results, right? Everybody, we see all of the people all over the internet with their screenshots, and they're bragging about the numbers that they're bringing in with their clients. And so everybody wants to know, like, I want clients who are going to get results, but results look very different, right? Based on who you're working with and how they operate. And so for me at the time, I was attracting people who were my strengths twin. And
what were you selling at the time? Because I don't know so much about your backstory. I know that you are a life coach and a business coach. And I know there's a story before you came to what you do now, but I don't know so much about what you were actually marketing and selling at that time.
Yeah. So business and sales coaching, right? I started in life coaching way in the beginning, but once I was in it, working with clients, helping them have sales conversations, work out their business model, I realized that I was attracting my strengths twin, meaning they didn't have the exact strengths that I had, but we were in the same strengths domains. So for me, when I realized, okay, this is why it's not working, and I needed to start to attract people that had complementary and opposite strengths to mine, things really started to take off and be fantastic.
Okay, hold on. Hold the frickin' phone. Okay. Screech, full stop. Okay. Every marketing guru out there, all the web celebs, all the big names,
Yeah.
take people through the process of identifying your ideal client and how to find them, how to reach them, and how to accelerate the know, like, and trust factor. And most of the time, I've probably heard this from at least 10 big name web celebs. Your ideal client is you. She or he is you, like a few steps back in your journey that you will naturally attract and be attracted to people
Right.
who are like you, and you are uniquely qualified to help people who are like you because you already have a common language, common struggles, common personality traits. It sounds like, Heidi, what you're saying is that is a recipe for struggle and missed opportunity, not to mention unfulfilled expectations. Why?
Yeah. Yeah, it very much can be. So there's truth in both of those angles. I can have strengths in one domain and attract either my twin or my complement and
Mm-hmm.
have lots in common with both.
Okay.
So don't get me wrong on that.
Okay.
Like have lots in common personally as a human being,
Mm-hmm.
but in terms of how I approach my work, no, not necessarily, right? And so let me I think it would
Let's
be
go.
fun
Let's
if
do
we
a specific example, right?
yeah.
Okay.
So when I look at your strengths, Diane, I'm going to pull you into the fun here.
That's why
So
we're
your
here, baby.
right? So your strengths are 60% of your strengths are in the strategic domain.
Mm-hmm.
So meaning so you are futuristic, strategic, and ideation. Those are all strategic strengths. 60% of what makes you who you are and how you operate, your style of work, what strengthens you is strategy. And then the other 40% is influencing. And so, what I'm so curious about for you is you have no executing strengths and no relationship building strengths. That does not mean you're deficient. You're already like, I'm resonating with this.
Well, I have been married 3 times, so perhaps I am deficient.
No, it doesn't mean that you're deficient, right? But what it means is, and what I'm trying to get to the bottom of with you is, does it make sense for you to attract twin strengths, people who are strengthened by strategy and influencing? Or would you work better with people who are in the relationship building domain and who are good at executing? And that's what we're here to
Mm.
figure out. Because when you lead, Diane, you, as I'm sure you know this, but you are a powerhouse in terms of like you see a 30,000-foot view. And for your ideal client or somebody who struggles to be your ideal client, that can either be amazing or incredibly frustrating, right?
Usually I think it's a little intimidating because something I realize is that to be a good coach, consultant, strategist, it's not enough that they are impressed with you.
Right.
They need to be impressed with themselves. They need to
Yeah.
be able to believe that what you are teaching them or modeling for them or evoking and inspiring in them
Yep.
is possible for them. So I think I'm aware. In fact, when I first did the Strengths Finder assessment and I saw strategic, ideation, woo, which is not woo woo, by the way. Woo stands for winning others over.
Yes, it does.
Significance and futuristic. And I got to know what each of those meant. I'm like, that is absolutely me. And I can point to all the ways that shows up in my life. But then when I went to the chart where it says, oh, 100% of your top 5 strengths are strategy and influence.
Yeah.
There's nothing in relationship and there's nothing in implementation. I was not happy.
Mm,
I was not happy because I thought that meant I can't be a leader. I can't
interesting.
build relationships with people and
Yeah,
I can't
actually,
implement. So,
yeah,
and again,
no,
there's like, what are there, 32 or 34 strengths in the strengths
34.
finders? These are just the top 5. And I do like my strengths, but I think it's very possible that the people I'm attracting are either, as you say, twins who have those same strengths, or
Right.
they aspire to have those strengths, but they don't. And no amount of time spent with me is going to get them there either, right?
That's right. That is right. So what is your gut telling you as you're hearing me talk about that? I mean, we don't know until, like, here's part of my work is like I'm poring over who you've been working with, what they've been telling you, what their strengths
Mm-hmm.
are, and making sense of all of that data. But I'm guessing in your gut, you know, the people who applied to be in your latest group
Mm-hmm.
program, what was it about them? What were they showing you that had you go, nope, that's not gonna work?
You're helping me realize a very, very important thing. What
Mm,
I have been looking, well, let me back up a little bit. I know you're aware
sure.
of this, but I think for those that are new to the Driven Woman Entrepreneur podcast, they may not be aware. The first couple of years that I spent developing my coaching business, I was focused exclusively on leading women who had their own businesses who identified with ADHD traits. And I now believe that all entrepreneurs have these traits. In fact, I joked with one of my previous podcast guests, what do you
Mhm.
call a person who is a quick thinker, a quick action taker, highly creative, has tons of ideas, is better starting than finishing, has shiny object syndrome, and has traits of procrastination, perfectionism, and people pleasing? They're like
Right.
everybody I know. So
Yeah.
it's literally like if you are an entrepreneur, you have these traits. Now, to have a diagnosis of ADHD, you have to have impairment as a result of the traits. So I realized that I do not need to be talking about ADHD. I need to be talking about the struggles of female entrepreneurs. So I sort of dropped that languaging. But my challenge in filling the group program is that I know quite a bit of my audience, the people that subscribe to my email list, the people who know of me, the people who have hired me. A lot of them do identify with ADHD traits. And one of the issues with ADHD, whether you think you have it, know you have it, suspect you have it, or never even heard of it, is that people with ADHD tend to have lots and lots and lots of ideas, but their rate of execution
Yeah.
doesn't match up to their brilliance. And when I
Right.
saw my Strengths Finder breakdown, I thought, well, that's why. Actually, there's plenty of people who have the top 5 that I have who never even heard of ADHD. So that's not it. Like you can't have strengths in every area, but
Right.
am I attracting people who, whether they identify with ADHD or not, their struggles in business are that they have tons of great ideas,
Yeah.
but they're poor at executing? And would I even be the right coach for someone like that? Because those are my struggles too.
Right. And so are you saying that that was what was showing up for you? Those are the types of
Well,
great.
two
And
things, Heidi. What I thought is one is that I think there's still some confusion, and this is more of a rebranding issue, which I'm still in the midst of. I think there may
sure.
be some confusion about how I help and who I help
Mm,
because of the ADHD influence in a lot of my past work. But
yeah.
also, I realize that I kind of need the people I work with in a group program to be at a similar stage of business and a
Right.
similar stage of development of their entrepreneurial mindset and identity. And that those were the distinguishing characteristics, not anybody's individual personality that I didn't think I could work with, is
Sure.
that I think I don't know how long you've been self employed, but I know that there are different stages that people go through, and that if you want to do really deep transformational work with people, you're
Mhm.
probably not best suited to total newbies because they have a lot of needs, and the kind of
Right.
work that you're going to want to do is something that they won't be ready for until further down the road.
Right.
But I don't do a strengths finder assessment on people prior to inviting them to work with me. And you're helping me realize that's probably not a bad idea, nor do I ask about their enneagram type.
Yeah, I ask for both on my intake form, and not because I want to pigeonhole anyone or reject anyone, but it's as much for me as it is for my potential client, because I want to make sure we are going to work together and you're going to get results based on how I know that I work. And so it's not everything, but it gives me a lot of information. So, okay, so here's a fun way to think about this. We were talking ahead about like the Netflix show Dead to Me, right?
Love it.
Yes, with Linda Cardellini and Christina Applegate. And so I want you to think about your strengths like Jen and Judy. And so when you're attracting ideal clients, if you're a Jen, do you want to be working with a lot of Jens? Which is what I hear you saying. Like, I had all the Jens coming to me who had all this strategy, but maybe, I don't know till we get going with more questions, but maybe it's the Judys who are, Judy is much more like, how does it feel and where are we going? And like, she needs direction and she needs strategy and she needs 1,000-foot view at what's going on because she is in
the weeds.
Yeah. And she's like, right. Like so I love this example for the strength twins and the complements, right? Do you want to attract your twin? If you're a Jen, do you want another Jen? Right? What kind of a client will perform and get results in such a way that really drives you to do your best work? What do you think?
Yeah, I can tell you because a couple of one-on-one clients that I'm working with right now who are getting outstanding results in their business, they are very happy working with me. One in particular, she has taken all the courses, participated in all the coaching programs, paid a few previous people. She has no shortage of information. She knows all kinds of things. And she's also an ideator like myself. So she has a fuck ton of ideas.
Yeah.
What she needed, and the reason why she hired me after listening to this podcast for a while, was that I have the ability to sort through tons of information coming at me in real time and say, this and that and this is how we're going to bring it together. And it's something I probably learned how to do in childhood, but I definitely made use of in my former career as a therapist. I'm able to detect, I don't know, sort of like, I think of it almost like panning for gold back in the gold rush days, like all kinds of sludge and water and mud and useless crap can go through my sieve, but I will catch the gold nuggets and help you make something out of them. She needed someone who had the ability to do that. She didn't need information. She didn't need a lot of managing of her implementation and execution. She needed someone who could take that high level view, help sort through all the stuff in her head and in her business, streamline it, simplify it, line it up and say, this is what we're going to do first, and then this, and then this, and then this. If you run into obstacles, let me know. And it's been super exciting and fun to work with her in that way. The other person I'm thinking about in response to this question has a terrific business, but she's very idealistic. She is very driven to provide excellent service, and she's a big old people pleaser. So she has equipped her business with a team of people who are just barely dialing it in. And she thought that she could inspire them and motivate them and literally love them so much and make working there such an awesome experience that they would step up and do their best. And as a result, she's financially driven this business almost out of existence. So what I've helped her do is get comfortable with the role of being the actual boss, being the authority figure and holding people to expectations and standards, communicating that clearly, and being willing to act on consequences if they don't come up. And that was like almost like a personality transfusion for her. But I was connecting the dots to all of the places that her business was losing money because she wasn't the leader she needed to be.
Yep.
And she is strong in the relationship department.
Right.
Too strong in a way. She put so much emphasis on the relationships that she wasn't paying attention to the profit needs of the business. So
I love that you've identified that because that's your compliment, right? That's the Judy to your Jen.
Mm.
So my question is for you as you think about your clients and the other client, the first client you talked about,
Mm-hmm.
it sounds like she was an executor, and that
Yes.
was great for you. You love that. Whereas so she maybe was also a Judy to your Jen because she
Hmm.
was able to execute. So for you, it could very well be, and we're not going to get to the bottom of all of this in one short little podcast, but it could be that you need people who are, in the relationship building domain because they struggle with boundaries and
Yes.
they need a strategy because
Mm-hmm.
they are wired to connect
Yes.
and they need a strategy for how to move their relationship through the connection and lead. They don't know how to
Mm.
they're not as strengthened by making decisions and leading. They are all about the connection, right?
Yes.
So that sounds like a really great fit client for you, somebody that has those relationship building strengths. But tell me a little bit more about that first client because it's not as clear to me. It sounds like she's an executor, which is a compliment to you,
Mm-hmm.
meaning she's not your twin in that
Mm-hmm.
department. What else stands out about the way that she was able to take your insights and move them into action? How was she getting results? Tell me more about that.
I'm going to answer a slightly different question. And if I don't reveal what you need to hear from me, maybe ask it of me in a slightly different way.
Yeah.
Something you're helping me realize is that I was a therapist for a lot of years. Therapy moves at a slow pace. It's
Yeah.
really kind of an open ended journey that doesn't have a specific destination.
Yeah.
And while I love process work and I love deeply transformational work, and I learn to be very, very patient with
Mm,
people's growth as a therapist, I
yeah.
reached a point where I didn't want to move at that pace anymore. I wanted to help people get to specific destinations, to have tangible results, and I wanted things to move much faster. So it was
Yeah.
kind of, for me, more moving from my zone of excellence into my
Right.
zone of genius because I am not naturally a patient person.
Yeah.
I
This
want
makes
results.
sense.
I want them
Yeah.
now. I want them fast because I think, hey, listen, who has time to fuck around and do all this trial and error? If I can show you how to get there faster, why wouldn't you want to? And I'm not talking about cutting corners or taking shortcuts. I'm talking about being efficient and creating results. And what I realized is as much as I loved being a therapist and helping people heal and grow and change and evolve over time, what I love even more, and I think I'm actually better suited to, is helping people define the results they want to achieve, help them create a strategy that works with their values and their expectations and their specific needs and goals, and then get there in as an efficient way as possible. So what actually excites me most about working with this client, and I'm just now getting this, my brain is kind of fizzing and tingling a little bit. I'm
Right.
realizing what makes my favorite clients are not necessarily the ones who have the personality that I like the most or who have that combination of witty banter and pure unbridled brilliance that I freaking love. The
Yeah.
clients I actually enjoy the most are the ones who are the implementers. They are the executors. They
Yeah.
actually need help sorting out the very good from the very best because they create lots and lots and lots of great ideas. But being
Yeah.
able to say what's the sheer winner here?
Right.
Which is the most brilliant of all this brilliance? People who have a hard time making decisions
Yeah.
or evaluating good, better, best
Yep.
are great for me because
Yeah.
I'm very decisive. I have a very clear idea. Yes, this could work and we can do some this or that trial and error. We can test it. But I think if we just set this aside for now and go in this direction, I think you're going to get where you want to go much faster. And the results will either fuel you
Yeah.
to do more or convince you this is not it. in which case we can pivot. So I think I probably have not been as effective with the people who, like me, are ideators, but have trouble with execution because I didn't have a strength of my own to really
Sure.
draw from. I have strategies, I have habits, I have rituals and routines that I've learned to get myself to be a better implementer, but it is not a natural strength. And I think when you're working from your natural strengths, you're going to get the best results. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, and you add a partner who is strengthened in different ways and brings out things in you that you would know, you know what I mean? It's just this beautiful, like, bouncing off of each other
Mm.
to get to the best place. Like, that's where we all want to be. When we hire a coach or a service provider, that's what we want, is somebody to help us, like, come alive and see the things that we can't see and take actions in ways that we never thought we would be able to do, but always wanted. Right. And so,
So they're
one thing,
compatible, but not your twin.
you know what, like, twins can work. I'm not saying that
How?
they can't.
How would that
Well,
work though?
well, you know what? The thing is, the likeness is because they're 34 domains. If you're not in the exact same, and which it's, I mean, there's so many configurations of your
Yes.
strengths, there's still lots of ways that you can get the best out of somebody. But when I'm thinking about, and like, this is where, it takes a lot more than just going, okay, well, I don't think my twin is right for me. It's like digging into, well, why do you think that is? Right.
Mhm.
So for me, I realized that my twins were showing up and were not able to get the results that they were moving incredibly slow.
Mhm.
And they were, because, so I am 80% relationship building and 20% strategy, which, right, is probably surprising given
Ooh.
how much I love data and, like, how to get people moving and all that. And so I work best with people who are high in strategy and influencing,
Mm.
because my job is to help you take all of that massive strategy and turn it into a way to connect with your clients and how to talk to them and what do they need and where, do you know what I mean? It's like this beautiful
Yeah.
combination. I don't need to tell you what to do. I just need to help you connect with your buyers and find a way to put a sales process in place that slows you down a little bit and has them meet you right where they need to meet you. So, yeah, I mean, it's just such a fascinating area of, like, interest for me because I went through this, but also I am fascinated about why, your clients are attracted to you and how you
Mhm.
can market to them using your strengths to get the most ideal people who are going to execute, who maybe are these relationship builders that desperately need somebody with a very strong strategic approach that can help them make decisions. Like, I want to help someone, right, in your situation, my clients, harness that strategy so that
Mhm.
they can attract the people with the right marketing language and the right sales process. And all of those strengths are going to meet together and fire in this brilliant way, right?
This should probably be a little cringeworthy for me, but sometimes I have to be hit over the head with a blunt object before I realize something that then I realize, why the F didn't you recognize that? The differentiators that I was looking at were where the person was in their stage of business and the
Yeah,
type of results that they were looking to get. And I
right.
was making decisions about who I would accept into this program and who I wouldn't accept into the program based on getting enough people who were at a compatible stage of business, were looking for a certain type of help, and who would play well with others. And what I'm recognizing, even in our conversation so far, is that if the most important thing to me, and I would imagine to any strategist, coach, or consultant who's listening, is not necessarily whether they are 3 years in business or 5 years in business or 10 years or two
Right.
months,
Yeah.
but what are their strengths and where do they struggle? Because you could have a brand new baby entrepreneur and someone who's been in business for 8.5 years
Yeah.
who have the exact same struggles because of their strengths and their limitations. And they
Yeah.
would actually have more in common than putting a bunch of people together who had same type of business or same amount of business experience, but who had widely different strengths and struggles. And
Yeah.
what's cringeworthy about this, Heidi, I was a
Mm.
freaking shrink. So you would think that I would be choosing people for this group based on psychometrics
Right.
rather than demographics. And yet I completely missed that.
Well, hey, like this is why we're having this conversation, Diane, because the internet is filled with the information that you are moving forward with, which is nobody wants to be in a group with somebody that's not as far along as they are in their business.
It is the
Let's
conventional wisdom.
right? Let's just call bullshit on that. That's not the
Mm.
only way to put people together. And in fact, as you know, that's not necessarily, it keeps us on the surface of looking at the people who might be a fantastic fit for us when we get caught up in like the Kool-Aid that the internet is, having us guzzle down. And so the fact that you've identified that, like, oh my goodness, I think this is how I was looking at my people who are
Yes.
coming into. When we're service providers and we're launching a group program for the first time and we're looking at the intake information that comes in, I find that my clients cannot really struggle to detach from what they're seeing the intake answers to be and what they're making up about those answers. Because I've
Okay,
had
you
many.
you have to describe that a little bit more because
Right.
let's talk about the process first. People like
Yeah.
me, especially for one-on-one work, but I also did this for the group program. I
Yeah.
have a process that I shared with you. They usually will hear me on a podcast interview, come over to the Driven Woman Entrepreneur, binge through a few episodes, say, I think this is the person for me. They will book a consultation call, which is a 30-minute interview, but there are a series of questions they answer on what is essentially the intake form. But it's a screening form where I
Yep.
tell them the price, how long the program is, and get some information from them. It does not include asking about StrengthsFinder or enneagram, but by the time I meet with them on the sales call, what I've attempted to do, and I don't even really call it a sales call, I call it a consultation, because
Yeah.
it's really an interview. It's not a sales call. My aim is not to sell somebody. My aim is to get to know someone and to
Yeah.
make the determination, am I the right person for the right reason at the
Yeah.
right time? And if it's not yes, like hell yes to all three, then it's a hard no for me. I will not invite them to become a client. But
Right.
you're helping me understand that the questions that I'm asking in that screening questionnaire are probably not getting to the most important things for me to know about whether this person will have a good result working with me. And that's frustrating
Yeah.
for both
Yeah.
of
That's
us.
right. But that's where the gold is. That really is where the gold is because then so instead, I mean, this is what I see people do with their intake questions is they copy what everybody else is doing. I'm not saying you did that, but it's an afterthought. They're like, this is a job that needs to be done. And I know once I meet with the person, I'll know, right? The
Hmm.
questions don't matter that much. And it's like, no, actually, the questions, how you think about, how aware you are of how you work with people, your self
Mm-hmm.
awareness, your awareness of who gets the best results, who are your high performers when they work with you, then you can start to craft an intake process and a sales process that allows you to meet those right people and identify them and just go deeper in so many ways than if you're asking the questions that don't get to like how do you perform in these kinds of environments and like what are your strengths and like for example the reason I care about enneagram, I can hear your enneagram 7, how you see the world through the lens of the 7, I should say, showing up very much because 7s are striving to be excited. And to me, it sounds like excitement for you is people who execute and get results.
Yes, as a matter of fact, yes, I am striving to be excited. And I think it's really funny because I don't really think about it as striving, but you're right. I have a high need for stimulation. I have a
Yeah.
high need for creativity. I have a high need for my curiosity to be evoked. I have a high need for movement and results and outcomes. And I naturally am attracted to those things. So it's actually painful when I attract someone who's very earnest, who
Yeah.
is a huge fan, who really likes me, just thinks I'm the coolest thing, and really
Right.
wants to work with me, but I'm not able to help them get the desired results and maybe not even know why, because the chemistry was so great. And it does remind me of, as I've mentioned, I've been married more than once. And I think this is not so different from dating
Oh man.
or, I
It's
mean,
there's
you're
so many.
literally, right? Like
Yes.
you're
Yes.
literally, you want to help somebody get somewhere in life as a
Yeah.
result of being involved with you. So
Yeah.
whether you have a romantic partner, you want them to achieve security, stability, comfort, love, permanency, belonging, connection, shared expenses, all of the benefits of being in a
Yeah.
relationship. And they're looking to you for those things to happen. And most people have no idea why their relationships don't work out or
Yep.
fail to ever get lift off because we don't know what questions to ask from the get go. And I probably would guess that nobody in the dating world is asking about Strengths Finder and Enneagram
Yeah.
before
I
they
mean,
accept a date either, right?
right? I just when I think about, matching, how do we match up with people, and especially,
Mm-hmm.
who we date and we marry, it's often somebody who is not our twin. It's somebody
Mm-hmm.
who's opposite of us
Yes.
because it's exciting and it's different and you bring different things to the relationship. And so this is very much like that. So people with the same Enneagram type, the twins in the Strengths Finder,
Mm-hmm.
can absolutely work. But this is what I'm really calling people's attention to is like, how do you know that a twin works, and how do you know that a complement to your strengths works? Like, let's look at
Mm-hmm.
that. Let's make sure that's dialed in so that you can use your Strengths Finder to look at, okay, how do I market and speak to my
Mm-hmm.
twin or my complement, like my Jen or my Judy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that I'm getting into relationship with people who light me up. And, as a seven, your brain works at a lightning fast pace, right? Ideas and curiosities and imagination. And so no wonder you don't want to pull someone along because you're so far ahead. You need somebody that can meet that energy.
Yes. And I joke that when people encounter each other in social situations,
Yeah.
most people say, "How are you?" I say, "What's new?"
Mm,
Because I am
right.
interested in how they are, but I'm really
Sure.
interested in what's new because what's new is what they're excited about. So
Yeah.
they're going to bring more excitement to the conversation, which is going to light me up. And I didn't even realize I was doing that until someone pointed it out. So for those that are not familiar with the Enneagram, let's have you share a little bit about what is the Enneagram 7 personality, what you notice about me that tells you I'm a 7, and then how would I use that to attract the right people?
Yeah. So, like I was saying, Enneagram sevens are striving to be excited about life, about the work that they're doing, about the connections that they're making, about what they see in the world, about possibility. And the challenge of the seven is that they're using all of that excitement to avoid any discomfort, difficult, pain. And so for a seven, they want to feel up. You want to feel excited and involved in what's going on. And so in terms of why is that important to know for a potential client that you're bringing in? knowing their Enneagram type. I mean, not everybody has to be an Enneagram practitioner and know all the ins and outs of the Enneagram. But if you have a basic knowledge and you understand, okay, if I'm a 7, how does my Enneagram 7 work with somebody who is, so an Enneagram 7 is in the headspace. How do they work with a heart-centered person
Mm-hmm.
versus the body-centered person?
Mm-hmm.
What does that look like for you? And so I'm just a fan of tracking those things so that you can analyze and understand, right? Okay, does this work for me? Sometimes looking at who you're partnered up with and going, okay, why does that work? Like in marriage or
Mm-hmm.
however that looks for you. Why is that working for me? And then you can look at, okay, why does that work with my clients? What are my parents' Enneagram types? And, am I attracting people that are like my parents into my business?
Mm-hmm.
Does that work for me or doesn't it? And it usually isn't a great
Mm-hmm.
combination. That
Mm-hmm.
usually ends up in a lot of tears and frustration. So, StrengthsFinder is a little bit easier in a conversation like this to get into. Enneagram is like,
Mm-hmm.
it's a pretty in-depth tool. So unless you have an understanding of each type, it's better to have somebody else who does understand it help you assess why,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
a 7 and a 4 work, or a 2 and an 8, or you know what I mean? Like all of that is sort of a deeper, richer conversation. But I think I just want to come back to like, what is the style that you like? What's your working style? Who performs best when they're
Mm-hmm.
in your energy? Looking at those sort of metrics, if you will, for how you're
Mm-hmm.
going to get a good match client, that's really, I think, where it's at in terms of like making sure. So if you're actually deciding, okay, if this person has the money to work with me, are they somebody that's going to get the result that excites me? And what does that look like? If you understand that, you're in good shape. But if you have no sense for what that really looks like, and to be honest, it takes a lot of fleshing out, right? That's why I wanted to have this kind of conversation with you on the podcast, because it just goes a lot deeper than saying, well, you need a strengths twin or a complement. Like it's just, there's so much more to it, right? So I'm wondering, like, if we come back to your two clients
Mm-hmm.
and we get a sense for, okay, who is your ideal fit person? It sounds like you need somebody's energy to match yours in terms of like there's some intensity, some excitement, and
Mm-hmm.
people who are going to execute, right? It sounds like you had a relationship builder that was willing to execute,
Mm-hmm.
and you also had somebody who was like more of a natural executor, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can you think of any not right fit clients
Yeah.
and describe what wasn't working about that relationship, and how, not necessarily like how they were performing or underperforming, that was not working for you?
I'm uncharacteristically speechless for a moment because I'm literally thinking back over different relationships that I've had and realizing at different points in time, I remember thinking, wow, I thought coaching was going to feel very different than therapy, but it doesn't. And I actually made changes in my business based on that assumption. What didn't occur to me then that I'm recognizing now is that it feels very different when I'm working with a client who's able and willing to implement. Because the work, when you're helping somebody, I love the strategy, right? When you're helping someone figure out the strategy, and when they figured it out, they get excited and they're eager to implement. They're excited. I'm excited. They're creating deliverables. I'm excited. They feel the progress. Like that really lights me up versus the person who's as much of an ideator as I am, who has as many creative ideas as I do, and working with me is actually just stimulating more ideas and more creativity and more possibility and more potential, which then makes it more difficult for them to choose, commit, and execute.
You
And
know,
yet, at the time, I loved working with those clients because it was super exciting and super stimulating for me to brainstorm with another ideator. Like, that's my frickin' sandbox. That is so fun. But once it's happened, and I've been very guilty of this as well, Heidi, the act of ideating, the act of creativity, the act of brainstorming and stimulating my mind to come up with all these wonderful ideas was so intrinsically satisfying that I was completely satiated just by having had all those ideas. It's like I was stuffed to the gills with a really great meal. And I then didn't feel any desire, any motivation, any drive to actually do something with it because I just got fully satisfied just thinking about it. And I realize that I have
mm,
attracted other people like that at times who
sure,
we had these brilliant brainstorms that never went anywhere. And I remember feeling really confused because I love this person, they love me. Our meetings are brilliant, they are magical, and then nothing happens between that call and the next call. And I'm racking my brain like, why, thinking, what am I doing wrong? Like, the coaching engagement is ticking away and we're not really getting anywhere. Some of these
right?
people even gave me terrific testimonials because they think I'm the absolute shit. But I
Yeah,
started getting frustrated
yeah,
if there weren't results.
yeah,
And that is what differentiates what I do now from therapy,
right.
the insistence and the focus and the expectation that
Yeah,
there will be results, because just getting together and creating magic,
yeah.
it's not enough for me anymore. It doesn't excite me. I want to see something actually happen, not just feel good.
Yes, yes, brilliant. So, a great intake form question or assessment question for you is something around that brainstorming piece versus executing what's been brainstormed,
Mhm.
right? Is that even a word? But
Let's make
because
it let's make it one.
you want to get down to, are you somebody that loves, that has all of the ideas, and then do you have someone in place to help you execute? Are you, you know what I mean? You want to ask that
Yes.
question that helps them articulate back to you how they deal with all of the ideas,
Mm.
so that when you see that answer, you go, oh, I need to ask them more about that. I need to get clear on, like, we're not here just to do a brainstorming back and forth. Like, for this work to be powerful for you, you need a way to implement it. And if that's not something that you're strong in now, maybe we're not a good fit, right? And to further that, somebody who is probably got input in their top five or
Mm.
intellection are also not a good fit for you because they are busy journaling and meditating on their ideas and their thoughts, gathering and analyzing all of their thoughts, and struggling to actually execute on those, right? So that's another good reason why just knowing somebody's top five and knowing how that looks in terms of performance is really powerful. It doesn't make them bad people. They're
Obviously.
excellent, right? They're fantastic in their areas of strength, but when it meets up with yours, not so much. It's not going to get you the result that you clearly articulated just now, right? It's kind of
That
exciting, really.
it actually is. I'm thinking of a couple of things. One is because I do love the brainstorming,
Yep.
and there are people who want someone to brainstorm with because maybe they feel like the well has run dry. They're all out of fresh ideas. I could
Right.
actually sell that as a one off service if I wanted to. I could actually
100.
offer that as literally brainstorm with me and
Right.
create the conditions for that. It wouldn't lead to an ongoing engagement
Right.
and then I wouldn't really have to do the same kind of screening because if that's what they need and that's what they want, it could literally be a one off thing. It would be
Yeah.
fun, it would be exciting, and I wouldn't
Right.
have to be concerned about whether they implement or not. And I also realize something else that comes up from this idea is I've been talking about, in fact, I just recorded an episode of the podcast about it, which may have already come out by the time this airs, about the difference between a strategist and a consultant and a coach. Because I've been marketing myself as a coach, but it's
Right.
really more accurate to say I'm a strategist.
Right. Yeah.
Because I am focused on the result and on the need to see the person get there. So,
right. Okay. So sorry to interrupt you.
no, not at all.
I'm thinking about the relationship builder who sees that you're a strategist, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it could be that using the word coach lands with them over strategist, right? Like, I'm not saying don't hang your hat on strategist. I'm just saying, like, look at, are you going to decide to go after the twins or the complement? And how does how you position yourself attract or repel them? Right? Think about your client who was like really struggling to make hard decisions,
Mm-hmm.
who was all about relationship. They might not, in their before state, might not be attracted to a pure strategist. I don't know, right? I'd have to dig deeper with you. Versus,
I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right. I don't think there is a perfect term,
no,
because strategist is like, okay, so you have all these great ideas. Let's figure out which one we're going to build on. But I'm also a coach and former therapist, so I can predict the obstacles that we're going to encounter along the way and help you overcome them as they do. Pure strategist is not going to be able to do that, isn't going to want to do it. That's outside their scope. I'm just thinking about all the ways that thinking from this perspective can change things for me now, because it's not just about the intake questionnaire. It's literally what I talk about on this podcast, my website, my branding, what I call myself, to be more and more and more accurate about who I am, what I do, and who is right to work with me.
Yeah, who does it make sense to gather and put into a container together, and who is going to benefit and how and why, and then once you have that group program, what is it that they need once they're in it to really, be supported, right? How do they need you to show up? What do they need from you? What do you need from them? Like, there's so much, right? This is like the tip of the iceberg. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, it absolutely is. And I know, because we don't want this to be a 3-hour podcast. A lot of my people don't have the attention span for that. And, but here's what I'm thinking. And if this is too big a question, we'll have you come back and address it another time.
Sure.
When you do this type of screening, when you really get accurate about who you are, how you work, and who you best are suited for, how different is that process when you are working with people individually versus collecting people and putting them in a group?
Yeah, there's a lot of similarities. And really, it's just a matter of like, how much data am I having to crush to get to know your ideal client, right? So let's just say you have a membership group of 400 people.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to want to survey those 400 people and understand why they're there and if they're the right fit based on your strengths and their strengths. And then how do we filter? How do we get people to engage more or less? How do we invite better fit and encourage the ones that aren't such a great fit to like move along? So when there's 400 people, there's a lot more, data for me to go through, for us to have conversations. But when you're working with one-on-one clients and you're wanting to assess, okay, who do I want to attract? It's not that it's necessarily less in depth. There's just less people, and it's easier to hone in on, who your fit is a bit. I don't even know if the word is faster, but it's just less volume of people and less to manage in terms of like the looking at, okay, why do people, I love to survey your audience and see like, why did you buy? How did you find Diane? What made you buy? What was the language that she was using, right? So if you get all of that pre-purchase information, along with then once they're into the delivery, then you find out why it worked for them and too far and deep into that, but
You can't be too nerdy for me when it comes to human behavior. Okay. Like there's no depth that is too deep.
right.
We both share the fascination
Yeah.
with human behavior,
Yeah.
why people do what they do.
Yeah.
This has been an endless interest of mine since I was a little kid. I don't think that will ever change. And
Yeah.
I think when you are in the business of wanting to serve people and lead people and help people achieve their goals, you owe it to them and to yourself
Yeah.
to know that you're attracting the people that you are most uniquely qualified to help, because that makes your business successful, fun. You get referrals, you get testimonials you don't have to ask for, and you get the ultimate satisfaction of knowing I am really freaking good at this. And don't just listen to me. Here's all these other people who say the
That's
same
right.
thing. I don't know how you can do that consistently over time without knowing why they choose you and how to
Yeah.
get better at only signaling those who will become your raving fans. It's super frustrating to start a relationship of any type for
Right.
any amount of time when you don't have the assurance of a good outcome for both sides.
Yeah.
So
And
what you do is so valuable and so
thank you.
important. You should, if you can figure out. Here I am telling you what to do. I'm very bossy. Probably didn't need to tell you that at this point, but it's like I'm just imagining the value of what you do for people who are hiring people to work with them or for them. And also, as we've mentioned, for dating, because you're literally casting people in important roles in your life
Yeah. Yeah.
and they need to fit.
Yeah. I mean, I just am endlessly fascinated, in particular around how people show up for to buy something. So I don't so much want to like work. I am fascinated by dating, like,
Mm-hmm.
but in my professional setting, I really want to help people understand, okay, your buyer, are they showing up and are you treating them like a transaction or is this a relationship? And how they show up for that is going to tell you a whole lot about how they're going to be once they pay you. And so, anyway, that's a whole other conversation.
Well, the psychology of money and behavioral economics and all of this, it's like, this is really, really important stuff. So before we wrap,
Yes.
I need to know what your top 5 strength finder themes are and your enneagram, because we most certainly will have another conversation at another time.
Yeah.
So what are your top 5?
So, my top 5 is empathy, relator, adaptability, ideation, and individualization. So I imagine just in that, I mean, I'm very much interested in, each individual, how I'm relating to them. I'm adapting to what I'm seeing. I'm empathetic, and I have really outside of the box ideas and thoughts. That's where you and I
The ideator.
collide.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we have that. So for me, it's important for me that I have people with those strategic
Mm-hmm.
strengths.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really wonderful match. So that is my top 5 strengths
We're
finder. And
opposites, with that one exception.
yes, yes, and that's why it
Fascinating.
works. That's why it works,
Fascinating.
right? Yeah,
I mean, this is so completely different than what other marketing people are teaching about like attracts like. But
right.
sometimes we get someone who, on the surface, is actually so much like us that we can't help them
Yeah, I
because we
mean,
have the same deficits they have.
right. That's here's the differentiator for me. You and I actually have a lot in common personally. When I'm listening to
Yes.
your podcast, there's lots of things where I'm nodding and I'm like, wow, we have a lot in common. However, when it comes to our strengths, we're opposite. So as humans, we get along like a house on fire, and our strengths help each other. So I think
So,
that's,
so good. And what about Enneagram?
oh, yes. My Enneagram type is I'm a 4 wing 3. I have a strong 3 wing which I think is that entrepreneurial like spirit showing up. But yeah, I'm an Enneagram 4, the counter type. If people get
Heidi,
I get
Heidi
it.
Taylor, you
And
literally
yes,
have blown my mind with this conversation
it's
because
awesome.
I have been attracting people that are like me and like me,
Yeah,
and yet sometimes struggle to get them results. And some of the people that have been the best clients they like me, they're attracted to me, but not because we are the same, but because their struggles are in the areas of my strength,
that's
which
right.
is how I can truly
Yeah,
help them.
yeah,
So
100%. Yeah,
mind
and they
blown.
have to be ready to step up, and they have to be ready to step up and be under the fierce power that you are providing.
I don't
So
think I
I'm
had a chance to tell you this before, but someone I did a consultation with, I asked her what she thought, and she said, "Oh, yeah, no, there's no way I could ever work with you." Interesting. Would you
mhm.
care to share why? You're way too confident for me.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I'm thinking, I don't know what you were looking for in terms of a coach, but okay, I respect your decision. And you're right about the stepping up part and why some people find someone with a powerful personality intimidating and someone else finds them inspiring. Because if you're not willing to step up, it will feel
yeah,
intimidating. It will feel actually disempowering, which is the
yeah.
opposite of what we want.
I will tell you, early in my business, I hired my twins and suffered greatly, but I wasn't ready for my compliment to give me that supercharge. You have to be ready. I was not ready for my compliment yet.
You
But
know what? I already called this interview over, but now you have to answer that question. Because I think this is a mic drop moment. I know this before you even answer. How do you know when you're ready? Because I think most of the mistakes we make in hiring the wrong person and in accepting the wrong person as a client is because we don't realize we're not ready. So how do you know when you're actually ready?
for me, I had to be grounded enough to know that the strengths that somebody who is opposite of me was bringing were not a criticism. I didn't need to take it personally. Need to get all up in my feels, right? But what they were providing me was going to really power me forward. If I was ready to hear what they had to say with an open mind, coachable, right?
Yes.
Sometimes, right, when I was early in my business, I was not ready for that. Now I specifically use my courage to choose coaches and mentors and therapists who are opposite of me.
Mm,
That's where I'm growing. I'm not growing when I'm choosing my twin.
mm, mm,
It
mm.
feels more like a coddling or a friendship or a that's who I want to be on a coffee date with, commiserating and sharing. But if I really want to get a result, I need my compliment to come in and just like blow my mind. Right.
As you just did mine.
Oh, that's an honor. I'm
I
glad.
literally, I'm actually speechless, which so rarely happens. I want to treasure the moment and also just thank you so sincerely because I knew this was going to be a powerful conversation, but I had no idea what you had in store for me. And
Mhm.
I'm so incredibly grateful. And you're not getting away because there's more to come from this collaboration. I'm just
Love that. Yeah.
amazed. And I really need to noodle on this for a while because,
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. And I would say that for any client that I worked with, like that's part of it is like there's a lot to take in. And now it's like chew on it. Come back to me with why this makes sense or doesn't make sense. And it's not something that's like one and done in a moment.
mm,
This is deeper work to really, wrestle with. Again, are you ready? I had to wrestle with, do I want pablum or do I want like the
hmm
hardcore hit me between the eyes? And that doesn't come with like quick.
no. And I do think also working with more experienced experts and entrepreneurs, you're probably going to be more likely to find people who have tried other approaches, have maybe made a little progress, but they can't break out of a certain plateau. And you realize at some point, it's actually more terrifying to stay where you are than to face the unknown and get a little bit uncomfortable. So I'm going to end with that. I'm going to thank you most sincerely for being my guest today. And please, before we say goodbye for now, tell everybody how they can find you on the interwebs. And if there is one last thing that you want to offer or share or let people know about Heidi Taylor.
Well, my favorite place to hang out and to be in relationship and to learn about other people's Instagram. So my handle is Heidi Listening, at Heidi Listening. So DM me there. Like, I am in the DMs. I want to talk to people. That is the place to find me. And then the last thing to share really is just, I am so grateful, Diane, that you were so willing to come on this experiment with me and do a little bit of a real life example. And I think so many people, I wished I had this conversation 10 years ago when I was trying to figure all this stuff out. So I applaud you for you were eager to do this, which, matches up with, you are a bold and courageous woman. And I applaud you. Thank you.
Thank you, friend.
You've been listening to the Driven Woman podcast with Diane Wingert. Want more straight talk and strategy each week that will take you from spinning to winning? Don't forget to hit subscribe in your podcast player so you won't miss a single episode. Then head on over to the Driven Woman free and private Facebook group community. See you there.